Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Before we do, a couple of housekeeping items that I have for us. We are going to be hearing two bills today. One of the bills is a lengthier bill that might take a little bit more time and probably has a lot of public comment. When we get to any public comment today, we'll take first public comment for anybody who has driven here and is in the room. Then, if time allows, we will take public comment online, but we will need to leave time to work the bill. So that will be the order of things that we do today. We'll present the bill, we'll take in-room public comments, online public comments, and then we will have to close public comment in time to work the bill. So with that, the first bill that we have up for our consideration is going to be House Bill number 41. And I believe we have Representative Webb here to give us this bill. So welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Appreciate being here. I bring before you this, well, I guess we're afternoon now, House Bill 41. This is a bill that I think was a portion of this was overlooked 2 years ago when we had a sergeant up in the northern part of the state that was killed in the line of duty, a Wyoming peace officer. During that time, the legislature passed a bill that increased the surviving spouse benefit of a peace officer that was killed in the line of duty from 62.5% to 90%. The Wyoming Highway Patrol, and the wardens and the agents that investigate major crimes were excluded. And the reason they were is that's a separate umbrella or a separate arm of the state retirement system. I think it was an innocent overlook. I don't think there was anything that was meant by it. I think that just in the rush of the budget session and the tragedy of what occurred in the city up north, it was just overlooked. There is no general fund. This all comes out of the retirement fund. It is there was a couple of. It does not affect the officer's paycheck. That has been a question that has been asked of me, and there was a couple of changes that was made on the House side. Basically, we made this effective immediately rather than waiting till July. And we also, gotta find it here. Deleted a section on page one, the original page one. And so you have the engrossed, if you have the engrossed version of it, you have the bill that was passed out of the House. Once again, just to reiterate, and to me, it's a very simple bill. It's just to put our patrol people, patrolmen, our agents that investigate crimes and our wardens into the same area, so it's equal. The 90%, the surviving spouse would receive 90% of the officer's salary should that officer be killed in the line of duty. And it's one of those things that I hope never happens. But if you have any questions, I won't try to belabor the issue any. There is a couple of people here that can testify to a little bit more of it, but I would stand for any other questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Representative Webb. Questions?
Madam Chair.
Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, is the highway patrol under the workers' comp system, and is there a workers' comp death benefit as well?
Representative Webb.
Madam Chairwoman, I couldn't answer that question, whether they are a part of the workers' comp or not, for sure. I know that we have an individual in the room that would be able, the colonel is here and he would be able to answer that question.
Okay. Yeah. All right. If Senator Hutchings, do you have a question?
I do, but I'm going to wait for his friend.
Okay. Would the colonel please come up and if the retirement board wants to come up and have. Thank you. All right, who would like to answer Senator Scott's question?
Madam Chairman, Senator Scott, I believe, all state employees are part of the workers' comp system. They pay into workers' comp. The benefit that we administer in the Wyoming retirement system is completely separate from that, and that's the topic of the bill.
That answer your question, Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, I think it does. There is a workers' comp death benefit, which is significant.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Hutchings.
I don't know if he wanted to answer. If he does, I'll ask my question.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Senator, I'm only aware of workman's comp in relation to injuries as a related to duty situation. I don't know how it would apply to a death benefit.
Oh, thank you. Okay, further questions? Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you bringing the bill, and it's so important, even for us, to look at the wording in the bill. And the word killed really jumped off the page to me just a few moments ago, because I was a little concerned about going from 62.5% to 90%. It's like, wow. In the military, as you know, we have the spouse benefit plan. So the spouse will have a certain percentage taken out of their pay each month. So if they die, then the spouse receives 55%. So do you have a like plan where the wardens, the Wyoming Highway Patrol, DIC are contributing to this plan just in case?
Let you guys answer that. And if you could just, since we haven't introduced ourselves, if you could do that for the record too, that'd be
Thank you.
great.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Colonel Tim Cameron, I'm the administrator of the Wyoming Highway Patrol. Specific to your question, Madam Chair and Senator Hutchings, is part of our retirement system. It's one of the benefits. Currently, it's 62.5%. Simply, the request is to make us like the two retirement systems for police side and Wyoming troopers, Division of Criminal Investigation, and Game and Fish wardens. So we're in one system. So we're just asking to mirror the other system. And it would be for surviving spouses. Since the inception of the Highway Patrol in 1933, we've had 2 line of duty deaths. Trooper Pete Visser in 1981, and then Trooper Chris Logsdon in 1998. So that's minimal, and we hope to keep it that way. That's already been said. But it does make us like the other system.
Thank you. Follow up, Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colonel, that really helps me with the bill. You're answering those questions and seeing, like I say, it's not like an officer slips and falls, he dies. This is someone who's actually killed in the line of duty. So thank you.
Any-
Madam Chairman, I'm David
Yes.
Swindell, the Executive Director of your Wyoming Retirement System. A little bit of history. The Wyoming Patrol Warden Plan, as we know it, dates back to 1973. It has about 300 active employees in it from the sworn members of the Highway Patrol, Game and Fish wardens, and investigating agencies out of the AG's Division of Criminal Investigations, or DCI. The other plan that we have for law enforcement personnel is the law enforcement plan. That dates back, it's a newer plan, dates back to 2002. Principally, it has deputy sheriffs and city police officers in it. There are some state employees, your correction officers and dispatchers are in the law enforcement plan, but they're two separate plans. They have different histories. The benefit structure is similar, but not identical. And they just grew up differently. There was an effort in 2022 that resulted in legislation in 2023 to equalize the line of duty spousal death benefit, the percentage of wages that we would pay to a surviving spouse if an officer was killed in the line of duty. Previously, the law enforcement or the warden and patrol plan had always been 50% of final wage. And the law enforcement plan was at 62.5% of final wage. And in looking at what we could do for troopers, we were having trouble retaining them. The director of WIDOT at the time went to the troopers and said, what can we do? And they pointed out this disparity and said, could that be fixed? And so in 2023, the legislature passed legislation to equalize that benefit at 62.5%. It was not a actuarially significant event, as Colonel Cameron said. This is a low percentage event. And so the legislature did that, and so we equalized that benefit. And then, as has also been discussed, we had that tragic incident, and the legislature increased the benefit in the law enforcement plan to 90%. So they were unequal, we equalized them, and now we're unequal again. This is paid for as part of the rate that members pay for the contribution rate. It's kind of an included insurance aspect of this pension plan. 62.5% was pretty much market. That's what a lot of surrounding states had, somewhere around 50% to 2/3, but there are examples of greater. In our area, Arizona is 100% of final wage. In Colorado, it's 50% of wage, but there's also a lump sum $1 million benefit. So states adopt this and operate in different ways. This is a benefit increase, but it's not much. It will add to the liabilities of the plan. Our actuaries calculated at $159,000 additional liabilities. That sounds like a lot, but this plan has $200 million of assets, $200 million of liabilities. The funding ratio right now is 81.9%. Madam Chairman, if the legislature passes this bill, the funding ratio will remain at 81.9%. If you go out to enough decimal places, you'll see a difference. But that's really why we say it's immaterial, and I wouldn't tell us to my actuaries, but it's probably within measurement error. So our feeling is it's best to equalize these benefits. It makes it easier to administer, and it's something that the troopers continue to keep an eye on.
Thank you. Colonel Cameron, would you like to make any further statements?
Madam Chair, thank you so much in the interest of your time, and I appreciate that and your consideration. I think the testimony in the bill speaks for itself, and we do appreciate your consideration, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to testify on this bill? Anybody else in the room? Okay. I know do we have anybody online for this bill? Okay, with that, then we will close the public comment on House Bill 41. Committee, what is your pleasure? Moved by Senator Hutchings, seconded by Senator Steinmetz. Any discussion on the bill?
Madam Chairman,
Senator Scott.
I do believe there is an overlap with the workers' comp death benefit. These are such low probability events that I don't propose to make an issue out of it, but I think there is a doubling up in here. And I don't know what the workers' comp death benefit is, but I know one point we changed it and it is significant.
That might be something that we'll look at if the bill goes forward, because I don't know enough about that workers comp. I think a lot of times there's a little bit of a difference though. I mean, between a workers comp and
it is different, but it is there. And at some point, Madam Chairman, workers' comp is this committee's jurisdiction. We'll need to look at it again.
Agreed. All right. Further comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and take roll.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 41. Senator Crum,
Excused?
Senator Hutchings. Senator Scott,
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz,
Aye.
Chairman Brennan.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, that is 4 aye and 1 excused.
All right, House Bill 41 has passed the committee, and Representative Webb, do you have somebody you want to carry this on the floor? Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, next up for our consideration is going to be House Bill 126. And I didn't even have to say anything. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to Senate Labor Health. You want to?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. Senators, thank you for the chance to be able to present House Bill 126, the Human Heartbeat Act. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I know there's a lot of folks here that want to be able to opine on this particular piece of legislation proposed here, and I will not take much of your time. House Bill 126 is a line in the sand. Currently, Wyoming has no tangible whatsoever restrictions on abortion. I mean, we can literally have abortions all the way up into delivery, according to what has happened with the determination from the Supreme Court in this last I don't know what you'd even call it. It was basically an undoing of the Life as a Human Right Act. And in so doing, what we did was we allowed basically unrestricted and completely free abortions in the state of Wyoming. I believe that based on Wyoming's history of being very pro-life and always supporting life issues, that is not actually the determination of the people of the state of Wyoming. Therefore, I bring you House Bill 126. House Bill 126 will allow for the protection of the unborn baby after a heartbeat is detected. And so basically, this does not allow for complete restriction of abortion in the state of Wyoming, but it does provide a line where we can actually say that from that point on, the baby will be protected in Wyoming state law. And the big determination here that we hear and see, ladies and gentlemen, is does the state have a right to be able to apply restrictions to specifically healthcare or anything like that? I believe it's very clear in our Article 1, Section 38 of our own Constitution, Subpart C, where it says the legislature clearly has that ability to restrict that. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to read that to the committee. Seeing that, citing our own Constitution, the legislature, this is Subpart C, may determine reasonable and necessary restrictions on the rights granted under the section to protect the health and general welfare of the people or to accomplish the other purposes set forth in the Wyoming Constitution. And one of those other things I believe that is set forth in our Constitution is, if you turn with me, or if you have, in Article 7, Section 20, it says, the duty of the legislature to protect and promote health and the morality of its people. As the health and morality of the people is essential to their well-being and to the peace and preeminence of the state, it shall be the duty of the legislature to protect and promote these vital interests by such measures for the encouragement of temperance and virtue, such restrictions upon vice and immorality, or even of every sort, as are deemed necessary to the public welfare. And I would cite as the health. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, the health and well-being of our citizens, and I do believe, and I will stand for the fact that the unborn are citizens of the state of Wyoming. They are people, and they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the ability to pursue happiness. And I believe the states have a responsibility to opine on this and to be able to determine those rights and restrictions. And with that, I will cite a couple of different points here that as we go through, even back to 1973, when Roe was first determined, citing some of the discussion from the court, it says the court is first formally in 1973. So going back to the inception of the abortion, allowing of this abortion or finding it as somehow a constitutional right, the court first formally recognized that states have a legitimate interest in protecting the potentiality of human life. So even in that time, when we were first establishing it, it was understood that we have a right, and the states must have an opportunity or a say in the potentiality of life. So if you move forward to 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, this decision reaffirmed the state's interest, but shifted the framework, holding that the state has a legitimate interest in fetal life from the outset of pregnancy, not just after viability. So this is not new. This is not a new concept. This is not something that we're coming up with here that was not already determined or discussed by the courts previously. And then we move to the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization in 2022. The Supreme Court, in the Dobbs decision, overturned Roe and Casey, ruling that the U.S. Constitution does not, ladies and gentlemen, I'll repeat, does not confer a right to abortion. This decision returned the authority to regulate or prohibit abortion entirely to individual states, allowing them to prioritize the protection of unborn life at any stage of development based on their own legislative judgment. So that's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. What we're doing is we're offering as the state's ability through the legislation and its people, their representatives, to be able to offer restrictions on abortion and to provide for the protection of life. Sadly, this piece of legislation will not protect life from its inception, which I would love to see happen. But the reality of where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen, is that I believe this is something that we can do and work with to provide a line where we can provide protection for life and establishing at the heartbeat. We all understand and know that chemical abortion is the fastest growing, if not the largest means of ending the life of the unborn. This will not stop that, sadly, but it will prevent the ending of the life of the baby after the heartbeat is detected. And so that's where we're here. I mean, I hear so often the idea that we have no right to say anything about this. We do, ladies and gentlemen. The legislature does have a right. They are human beings that are and should be provided the right of protection that all of us have and enjoy this very hour. And so establishing this ability for them to have that opportunity to come to fulfillment is, I think, the responsibility of the legislature clearly laid out by our statutes and clearly delineated in our own state constitution. So if you want to go through the bill, we can, and I understand there are some amendments that are coming, and I've got to go to another meeting here directly. I can hang around a little bit. Fully support the amendments that are going to be brought. Have my full support in this. I think it's a good way of branching this out and protecting and providing more opportunity for life to be found provision for and protection. We did make a couple of amendments to the original bill before it left the House. There were some concerns about the potential of implications to pharmacists and nurses. We found and got with stakeholders, and we got some really good feedback from them. They gave us and crafted it, some amendments to be able to go in there and provide that protection. And that was resoundingly received by the House. So that is in there from the original bill. And so with that, any questions, I would be glad to field them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that you have another meeting to go to. Do you want to give us the high level 2-minute walkthrough of
Yeah,
bill,
absolutely can.
please?
Yep, and we can go through, as you have before you, if you turn to page 2 of the legislation. What we're talking about here is, and we give some findings in this particular legislation and lay this out. What we're wanting to do is put together actual, findings, or beyond that, actual structure that helps us to be able to maintain and provide for the courts. We tried to go back into the court's decision and to be able to address some of their concerns. So if you wouldn't mind, I can read for you from some of this. In State v. Johnson, this is beginning at line 3, 2026. The Wyoming Supreme Court interpreted Article 1, Section 38 of the Wyoming Constitution to include a right to make healthcare decisions, but acknowledged the legislative's authority under Article 1, Section 38C of the Wyoming Constitution to enact reasonable and necessary restrictions to protect the general welfare of the people. Even our own state Supreme Court acknowledged that right. And we can go into some of that. This is just some discussion points and stuff like that on page 2. Moving on. Instead, the state, on page 2, beginning at line 1, the state of Wyoming asserts a compelling interest in protecting the general welfare of its people by preventing the torture or inhumane treatment of any living human being whose heartbeat is detectable. In the legislation, acting under the specific authority to determine reasonable and necessary restrictions, which were cited in Article 1, Section 38, Subpart C, on the right of healthcare access to protect the health and general welfare of the people, granted in article stated that the purpose of this act is to restrict abortion procedures on unborn children with a detectable heartbeat. As you move on down to page 4 and into the bill, We give some determinations and some clarification. We talk about determination of pregnancy and the meanings, definitions throughout the bill. If you have questions on them, I'd be glad to try to answer those for you. Moving on to page 5, beginning at line 8, the determination of whether an unborn child has a detectable fetal heartbeat shall be made using standard medical practices and techniques, including ultrasound measurement, if necessary. And so, and then the amendments were brought in where we talk about the pharmacists and we talk about the nurses. We also do have a restriction on the ability of in the bill, actually. If you go to page 6, beginning at line 5, subpart B, the restriction on subsection A of this section shall not apply if in reasonable medical judgment, a medical emergency exists. So we do have the language in there to provide for the termination if necessary. If a medical emergency exists, a licensed physician may terminate the pregnancy, provided that the termination of the pregnancy shall be in the manner that provides the best opportunity for the unborn child to survive, unless the manner would pose a greater risk of death or substantial or irreversible physical impairment to the pregnant woman. We tried to put that in there so that we had the ability to be able to provide that if necessary. But if the child is, in that situation is far enough along that we would provide every means possible to be able to provide care for that child. Any person who intentionally or knowingly violates this article shall be, this is the bottom page 6, shall be guilty of felony punishable by a recipient for not more than 5 years and a fine of not more than $10,000. And, some people say that's an egregious amount. I don't know, what do you put on the value of life and to try to prevent, the taking of that life? You can go on down through some statutes here, then section 3. Then we did some work on this. This is where the amendments came in, would be on page 7 when we're talking about nursing, and then also in regards to the pharmacists to provide them protection in case they get caught up in something like this, that they're going to have the opportunity to be able to represent their case and be able to be protected in that. Those were the amendments that were brought in the House. And actually, that was a second reading amendment brought. We talked about it. We brought it back on the 3rd after speaking with the stakeholders and trying to be very thorough about making sure that we got those folks protected. Beyond that, that's the bill.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, so for members of the committee and the public, we will open this up to public testimony. I'm going to give about 20, we should have about 26 minutes for each side. So we'll start with anybody opposed to this bill.
Thank
And
you.
we're going to do like we did again. We're going to limit everybody's testimony to 2 minutes. So anybody opposed to this bill, if you would come and fill the chairs. Thank you. Welcome. Who would like to start?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Wendy Volk from Cheyenne. Excuse me. I speak today as a mother who deeply cares about Wyoming families. I want our state to be a place where families can safely bring children into the world and feel supported long after birth. That means access to prenatal care, safety in staffed hospitals, mental health support, childcare, and economic stability. It also means trusting women and families to make deeply personal medical decisions with their doctors. Pregnancy is private and it is personal. It should not be decided by our legislators. House Bill 126 does not strengthen that foundation. It risks destabilizing it. If this bill passes, we face real consequences. Physicians may choose to practice elsewhere. Labor and delivery units in more of our Wyoming rural communities may close. Women experiencing medical emergencies may have to travel out of state, and families facing devastating pregnancy complications may endure additional trauma and legal uncertainty. As a mother, I know pregnancy can be joyful. It can also be medically complex, emotionally overwhelming, and sometimes dangerous. No woman should face those moments wondering whether her physician is hesitating out of fear of prosecution. If we truly want Wyoming to be a place where Wyoming children and families thrive, we should focus on expanding maternal health care access, supporting rural hospitals and providers, investing in childcare and early education, strengthening postpartum and mental health support, and reducing maternal mortality and preventable health crises. A culture of life is built on stability, access, and support, not criminal penalties. For the sake of Wyoming mothers, children, and the medical professionals who care for us, I respectfully ask you to vote no on House Bill 126. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Any questions? Thank you. All right. Next.
Thank you. Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Megan Hayes. I'm an attorney from Laramie, Wyoming, and I urge you to oppose House Bill 126 because it's blatantly unconstitutional. As you know, the Wyoming Supreme Court affirmed that the state constitution protects an individual's right to make healthcare decisions, including abortion care decisions. While the court acknowledged, as did just Representative Nyman, that the legislature may enact reasonable and necessary restrictions, House Bill 126 far exceeds those limits. First, a near total prohibition on abortion once a detectable fetal heartbeat is present, often before many women even know that they're pregnant, cannot reasonably be characterized as narrowly or carefully tailored regulation. It functions as a categorical ban on pre-viability abortion, eliminating meaningful access to a constitutionally protected healthcare decision. Second, the bill's structure, criminalizing physicians with penalties, felony penalties, and mandating automatic professional license revocation creates a coercive regime that chills constitutionally protected medical care. Severe criminal penalties tied to a constitutionally protected decision renders that right hollow in practice. Third, the definition of medical emergency invites uncertainty. Physicians are forced to predict whether a condition rises to the level of serious risk of substantial and irreversible impairment of a major bodily function. When professional licensure and possible imprisonment hinge on that judgment, doctors will understandably practice defensively, delaying care until harm is imminent. Finally, tying a compelling interest to a detectable heartbeat without adequately demonstrating that a 6-week threshold is medically or constitutionally warranted will not survive strict scrutiny analysis under our
2
state
minutes.
constitution. I urge you to uphold your oath and vote no.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman. question.
Senator Scott, yes.
Madam Chairman, I belong to a church that does not believe, that believes in a woman's right to choose. And this is imposing the doctrines of a religion, a set of religions that believe the other way. Do you think as an attorney that this bill violates the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States?
Go ahead.
Yes, I do, Senator Scott. There are also other provisions of the Wyoming Constitution that I believe this bill would violate. I think that the litigation that went forward, the complaint asserted several different constitutional provisions that a similar abortion ban violated, but the courts chose to focus on Section 38, which is very clear in its language. But yes, I do agree that there are other provisions of the Constitution that this violates.
Thank you. Follow up. Senator Hutchings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Megan,
I'm an attorney, not a.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mrs. Hayes, barring religion, because I don't see that really coming up anywhere in this bill, but just based on testimony so far, we are legislators. We try to do things the best we can, but we don't really get to decide the constitutionality of a law. That's up to the courts. So just FYI. And the courts have said in that last ruling for us to try again. So just FYI, that's what we're doing. We're doing our best to create a law that they can uphold. as constitutional. Thank you.
Should I respond? That's not a
Yeah,
question.
if you'd like.
Would you like,
Well, I believe what, I think I agree that you reasonable and necessary, but again, it has to be narrowly tailored. And also, I think what the court emphasized was that the legislature should put the issue to the voters through a constitutional amendment.
okay, thank you. Next, if you'd state your name.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Britt Borrell. I am Executive Director for WYO United. First, I just want to take a moment to express my disappointment in this committee process. I believe that the way that public comment was handled on Wednesday was shameful. In a state as vast as Wyoming, it is critical to allow public comment online. I understand that time is a consideration, but I would argue that if you do not have the time to fully hear from the people whose healthcare access you are trying to restrict, you are not being thorough in your lawmaking. But not listening to Wyoming constituents appears to be the point. Following the Supreme Court ruling last month, the governor asked this legislature to take a constitutional amendment to the people for a vote on the question of abortion for a reason. All of the legislation this body is attempting to pass that limits access to care is unconstitutional. Passing it would only invite more lawsuits, costing taxpayers money in the process. To be clear, this is a copycat bill that has passed in other states and will effectively implement a 6-week abortion ban in Wyoming. Many women do not even know they are pregnant at 6 weeks. This bill's stated interest in implementing this ban is to protect fetuses from experiencing excruciating pain, and it cites incorrectly and without evidence that fetuses can feel pain starting at 15 weeks. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists states that fetuses cannot experience pain until at least 24 to 25 weeks gestation. No physician in Wyoming provides abortions past 24 weeks. In states with bans just like this across the country, women are suffering, losing fertility, or dying because they lack ready access to the abortion care they need, whether that's because providers have left the state or because they fear repercussions for providing life-saving care. We already have a dangerous absence of maternal care in the state, and our lawmakers seem laser-focused on making it worse. Personally, I believe this body chose not to take the question on abortion to the people for a vote because they know they would lose at the ballot box. The state's interest in limiting our access to healthcare is flawed and inadequate. It does not meet strict scrutiny standards for interfering in our healthcare decisions and is therefore unconstitutional. So I ask you to please protect Wyoming women and families. Please uphold our Constitution and please vote no on HB 126. I would stand for questions.
Any questions, committee? Okay. Next.
My name is Greg Hunter from Laramie, Wyoming. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. First, I want to express my gratitude to the people of Wyoming for funding the University of Wyoming, and is it a place where conversations about this subject may be had. These conversations have allowed me to understand the constitutional rationale used to support bills like HB 0126. The logic or constitutional language that right to lifers use is supposedly found in the 14th Amendment. Apparently, we were supposed to ignore birth and naturalized in the 14th text, allowing the state to assume that a female that has had sex is now carrying a citizen that is to be afforded due process and equal protection under the law. Poppycock. It is my firm belief that our Constitution is a good neighbor document, and if I, as a citizen, would not want something imposed on me, I would not want to impose it upon my neighbor. So when it comes to this bill, I would have to assume that if you vote for it, you are willing to manage your neighbor's womb. I am sure that I would never think I had the right to tell my neighbor how to manage her womb. But now we are here to watch elected officials vote to put the power of the state behind an action you would not do yourselves. If you vote to advance this bill, you will force someone like Art Washit to arrest a lawbreaker and force a local prosecutor to perform actions that you would not do yourself. That, my friends, is not what this republic or constitution is about. That, my friends, is tyranny. If you vote aye on this bill, you are not only a terrible neighbor, you are empowering tyranny. And yes, if you vote for this bill, I will glare at you when I see you shopping at Safeway, but I will sleep soundly at night knowing that he stood up to a terrible neighbor. I will stand for questions.
Madam Chairman, point of order.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you. I don't believe that calling people names and terrible neighbors is appropriate for a legislative hearing.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Yes, no, what we're asking for is that everybody keep things cordial and appropriate with their language during testimony. Thank
Have a
you.
blessed day.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room that is opposed to this legislation? Anybody else in the room that's opposed? Okay, I believe we have some people online that are opposed to this legislation. We have about 15 more minutes to take testimony. So same rules will apply. We have 15 more minutes to take testimony online. And so if you'll let the first person in and you'll have every person online, we'll give you, well, we're going to give people online 2 minutes, realizing that we will have about 15 more minutes for any opposition. Welcome. If you go ahead and give us your name and your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Katie Knetter, and I'm the Executive Director of Wellspring Health Access. We are the organization in the state that operates the state's only procedural and medication abortion clinic in Casper, Wyoming. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today regarding HB 126. We have grave concerns about this bill. The Wyoming Constitution guarantees the rights of citizens to make their own decisions about their health care without government interference. This bill is an unconstitutional attempt to interfere with the rights of Wyoming women and their families to access health care. HB 126 bans abortion after a heartbeat can be detected in a fetus. This can happen as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. Because pregnancy is dated from the date of the last known menstrual period, this could be 2 weeks after a person first misses their period. That is incredibly early, and many people do not even know that they are pregnant at that point in time. This will effectively be an abortion ban. Research from the Guttmacher Institute found that even people who learned of their pregnancy this early were unable to access abortion care until later in their pregnancy. Limited access to reproductive health care, which is a huge problem in Wyoming. Poverty, youth, distance to clinics, and lack of reliable information about pregnancy and abortion care can lead people to be forced to delay accessing abortion care. Abortion bans hurt pregnant people by denying them necessary health care as well as violating their bodily autonomy. Across the U.S., over 60% of abortions take place at or after 6 weeks. This means that this law would effectively ban the majority of abortions. Similar laws that have been passed in states across the country, like Florida and Georgia, have directly led to the deaths of people who have been denied health care because physicians were afraid of being charged under punitive laws like this one. We urge you to vote no on this bill, and I stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Any questions? Thank you for your testimony. We can let the next person online.
Hi, I'm Hannah.
Welcome, Hannah. If you go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Hannah Sharp. I'm in Casper, and I'm a nurse and I'm a mom. And thank you for taking my testimony, Madam Chairman and the committee. I think that it's become really, really, really hard for us to talk across the aisle on this issue. And I just want to say that I want to like take it seriously what the speaker said about understanding that like what if we take it seriously that a fetus is life and that we respect all life. But then my God, I'm so nervous. I'm so sorry. I've never testified before a committee before.
You're doing great.
The thing is, then we forget about the mother's voice completely. If we take that to an extreme, I think that's why the left is so afraid of fetal personhood, because it becomes that we lose female personhood altogether, until her life is supposedly in danger at some point. Again, I didn't get the email that this was even happening until like 12 hours ago. So I think that it's really important that we keep women's voices in charge of the people that are inside their bodies at all times, in order to create a society that values all life. And that's the main thing that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll let the next person in.
Can you hear me?
We-
Hello?
We
Oh.
can hear you.
Oh, you're not seeing me. There you go.
No.
Video. Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm
Thank you.
sorry, my video is a little blurry. My name is Christine Lichtenfels, and I'm from Lander. And I speak to oppose this bill. I understand many of you oppose abortion. Respectfully passing on constitutional bills is not the answer. Providing a thriving community where people are able to safely birth and raise their children is. I have a number of concerns here. In no uncertain terms, as others have mentioned, this is an abortion ban. And I won't reiterate that thinking. The Wyoming Supreme Court has already found 2 abortion bans unconstitutional as interfering with a woman's constitutional right to make her own decision about whether to continue or terminate a pregnancy. As you know, legislators take an oath to support, obey, and defend the Wyoming Constitution respectfully. Voting for this bill violates that oath. Not surprisingly, in a state that values independence and freedom from government interference, most Wyomingites oppose government interfering in private pregnancy decisions, including whether to terminate or continue a pregnancy. Perhaps that's why the legislature was not willing to propose a clear constitutional amendment on abortion for Wyomingites to vote on. Ironically, this bill encourages instant action for those who even realize they are pregnant in deciding to have an abortion. When other abortion regulation bills are all about wanting to slow down the decision. I find that quite puzzling. There is no question that people of goodwill and deep belief have strong opinions on when an independent human life that should be protected by the government begins. Much of this is grounded in their religious beliefs. The fact that this disagreement in whether abortion should be regulated has persisted so long demonstrates that this is a personal, often complicated moral decision that must be left to the individual and their own deeply held moral and religious beliefs. Government regulation is not the answer. As I read this bill, women who use medication abortion may be prosecuted as felons if they didn't have an ultrasound or if they took medication after 6 weeks, since by taking the medication, they will have induced the abortion themselves. Women, not just physicians or potentially nurses or pharmacists, will be subject to criminal prosecution.
We're at 2 minutes.
Is that correct?
Thank you for your testimony.
I ask you to vote no.
That is not, this does not, this has nothing for the mother in here as far as any criminal charges. They're only for the physicians, the pharmacists, and the nurses.
Okay.
So, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You let the next person in, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome. If you give us your name and.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jovanina Anthony. I am an OBGYN in Jackson, Wyoming, and I serve patients in multiple Wyoming counties. I oppose HB 126, and there are multiple aspects about this bill, which is a de facto ban that I have issues with, but I'd like to focus on the fact that the bill will cause OBGYNs such as myself to fear treating our patients secondary to the extreme punitive issues here. A medical emergency is not always easily defined. It is often nebulous, and when patients show up with scenarios where they are pregnant and bleeding or infected and in harm's way, how to define whether or not that medical emergency will lead to the description as it is in the bill is a matter of medical judgment. And I would say that physicians who are faced with having to make that judgment, especially in the middle of the night or off hours where we do not have legal counsel and where we risk loss of licensure, where we risk going to prison, where we risk our livelihoods, is a scenario that we do not want to live with. And I will tell you that if bills like this were in law, when I came to this state 23 years ago, there's no way I would have practiced obstetrics and gynecology here. And I really fear that we will go down the road of Idaho, which is our nearest neighbor, with bans of this nature, where they have lost 30% of their OBGYNs. That is my testimony, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Committee, any questions? All right, thank you. We could let the next person in online.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. If you would give us your name and tell us your thoughts, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Joanna Harder. I am a resident of Lander, Wyoming. I've lived many places in Wyoming. I'm here representing myself and thoughts on this bill. So I have multiple serious concerns with HB 126. Our legal and medical systems are built on bodily autonomy and consent. We do not force people to make health decisions about their own bodies for the benefit of others. Yet women regularly choose to put our health and our lives on the line to bring children into this world. Reconciling the rights of a fetus as part of a woman's body is complicated, and anybody who pretends there's a simple answer to this is either deeply misinformed or blinded by ideology. And amidst this complexity, the most appropriate person to make decisions regarding her pregnancy is the one who is pregnant. And many women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So this bill effectively allows the government to make medical decisions for women before they even know they need to make one. This bill also forces women to undergo a transvaginal ultrasound in order to access specific medical treatments. And let's be honest about what that means. The government is mandating an invasive medical procedure. This procedure is not minor, it's invasive, and for women with a history of sexual assault or trauma, it can be deeply distressing. The state should not require an invasive medical procedure as a condition of receiving medical support. That crosses a serious line. I'm also worried about the so-called emergency exception, as was just referenced. Wyoming women should not have to worry about politics affecting their treatment during a complicated pregnancy. The definition of emergency is subjective and legally risky. And when you attach criminal penalties, fines, and loss of licensure to medical decisions, doctors will more than likely practice defensively to protect themselves in their practice. I'd like to ask that our politicians please respect medical experts and focus more on improving access to OBGYN services across our state so that pregnant women can receive comprehensive, timely reproductive health care. Please respect women and medical expertise and vote no on HB 126. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? All right, thank you very much. If you'd let the next, that's it? Okay, perfect, because we are running up against time. All right. Any of those of you in the room who are in support of this bill, would you please come forward and give your testimony? Do the same thing. Each person will have 2 minutes, and you can come fill the chairs and just keep filling the chairs as they empty. So, all right, welcome.
Thank you,
Give
Madam
us your name.
Chairwoman. Members of the committee, I'm Mike Lehman with the Catholic Diocese of Cheyenne. The question of when life begins does not seem to be at issue with our current Supreme Court. In paragraph 2 of the State versus Johnson decision, the court says, although we recognize the state's interest in protecting the life that an abortion would end, we conclude that the state did not meet its burden of justifying the abortion statute's restrictions. Those restrictions that were in place with the 2 previous laws. So 2 things to note in that paragraph. First, the court says abortion ends a life. Not a clump of cells or a mass of tissue, but a life. Second, the court recognizes the state has an interest in protecting that life. It's not simply a decision then between a patient and a doctor, according to the Wyoming Supreme Court. For many Wyomingites, the decision seems to fall apart after that because abortion, if abortion ends a life, and our Constitution clearly states that life is an inherent right, what extra burden of proof could be possibly necessary before the state will fulfill its responsibility? The decision seems to signal to the world that in Wyoming, fundamental rights are granted by the government. In spite of this confusion, I'd remind the committee of the words of Chief Justice Baumgarten during her State of the Judiciary 2 weeks ago, when she said, the legislature has the last word. If a court has reached a result that is unpopular, the legislature can make a new law. HB 126 would be a new law. And Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, I just want to say, voting for a bill that would protect life is not extreme, regardless of how it's phrased for folks. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Thank you very much. All right, welcome. If you give us your name and your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kylie Wall, and I am the Vice President of the Students for Life chapter at Casper College. I spend a lot of time, especially as a student, listening to arguments from every side of this issue. I want you to know I didn't arrive at my position casually. I want to ask you to think about something very simple, not politically, not emotionally, just honestly. We like to pretend the questions of life is complicated, but in every other context, it isn't. If scientists announced tomorrow that they had discovered an organism on another planet, one with organized cells, growth, responsiveness, and a detectable heartbeat, we would not hesitate for even a second to call it life. We wouldn't argue about dependency. We wouldn't say, well, it can't survive on its own, so maybe it doesn't count. We would be in awe. We would protect it. We would call it living without embarrassment. And yet, when those exact same biological markers exist in the womb, suddenly we lose our confidence. Suddenly, science becomes unclear. Suddenly, we're told it's just potential, or just tissue, or it's just a cluster of cells. Shift isn't scientific, it's convenient. HB 126 asks us to stop pretending we don't understand what we very clearly understand everywhere else. A heartbeat is not symbolic, it is functional. It is measurable. It is one of the most basic indicators we use across medicine, across science, to distinguish life from death. We pronounce death when the heart stops, but when a heart starts beating, we suddenly claim we don't know what that means. That contradiction should make us uncomfortable. This bill does not create some new definition of life. It simply refuses to play along with the intellectual gymnastics required to deny one. It says that when life can be objectively detected, the state may recognize it. That is not extreme, that is consistent.
Kylie, thank you so much. You're at 2 minutes.
No worries. Thank you so much. And with that, I will take questions.
Committee, any questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Krista Reister, and I'm the pro-life liaison for Wyoming Family Alliance, and I'm here in strong support of this bill. From the moment of sperm-egg fusion, every piece of genetic information and all necessary materials are present for the development of a distinct human being. Nothing else is required but time and a hospitable environment. The heart is the first functional organ to form in a developing human being. Cardiac development begins around day 18 after fertilization. By day 21 or 22 after fertilization, coordinated cardiac activity begins. That is not ideology. That is objective, verifiable medical science. By approximately 6 weeks of gestation, rhythmic cardiac activity can be detected by ultrasound, and the heart rate averages about 110 beats per minute. At this stage, the developing human circulatory system is functioning. Blood is moving, and oxygen and nutrients are being delivered throughout the baby's body. This is already a incredibly complex and rapidly developing human being. Some have suggested that what is detected at this stage is merely electrical activity or impulses or a random flicker of cells. That is not accurate. The early heart is a looping heart tube that contracts in a coordinated way to pump blood, which perfectly matches the needs of the developing baby. It is the early stage of the same organ that will continue to develop through pregnancy and after birth. That is not transformation, just maturation. To be clear, the heartbeat is not what makes a human being human. Life begins at fertilization, and the heartbeat does not create that life or give it worth. It is measurable and audible proof that a life is already present. While my focus today is the biology, we cannot ignore the moral reality. Every human being is morally inviolable, not because of size, dependency, or stage of development, but because of what they are. Science confirms their humanity, and justice requires their protection. Let Wyoming be a place that every Wyomingite, born and unborn, can count on equal protection, stand equal in dignity under the law, and live without their worth being debated.
Reister, we're at 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Committee, any questions? Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Nathan Winters, President of the Wyoming Family Alliance, and I rise in support of this legislation, but I will keep my comments very tight. I, of course, do support the legislation very much. I just want to note a couple of things that have been added in the process already. You'll find on page number 7 and 8 that there have been a few things placed in the bill. I think that makes the bill better. And what they did on line 16 of page 7, and then on page number 8, it's lines 11 and 18, they added the idea that a person needs to be convicted of violating. So that just ensures due process. I want to point that out just because sometimes people have brought an idea that this is just arbitrary and overwhelming. This is something that would have to go through many steps in court. But I do also want to alert your attention to one thing I think would be helpful in the bill. Right now on page number 2 in section A, under the legislative findings, those findings, starting really with Romanet double I there and on through page number 3, it seems to hold itself to a different standard of essentially like fetal pain as opposed to heartbeat. I think that there may be some better things that could be put in place there. And so I would just recommend, and I can help with that as well. I really believe that this is important, so important that I know that Wyoming does occasionally seem to have a hard time putting findings into law. I think it's actually important with legislation like this, especially in light of the recent Supreme Court decision, that the legislature expressing what it's trying to get through the process is going to be important for us to carry forward. So I just wanted to leave those for you, and I'll stand for any questions, but thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Committee, any questions? Thank you. Welcome. Give us
Thank
your
you,
name
Madam
and-
Chairman. My name is Maria Ward. I work for the Catholic Diocese of Cheyenne, and I am the Project Rachel coordinator. Project Rachel is a national effort from the Catholic Church to offer hope and healing for those in the aftermath of abortion. This could be someone who they themselves had an abortion, or a loved one, or even a surviving sibling who is struggling to offer forgiveness for the loss of their sibling. So today I speak on behalf of some of the experiences that I've heard from people that I've accompanied on their profound healing journey. Oftentimes after their abortion, it might take years or even decades before they come to realize the great hurt and despair that they feel because of that decision to end the life of their unborn child. This bill would help offer protection, not just for the unborn child, but to prevent many of the people that I have worked with from those years of agony over what they did. Although the heartbeat bill, as we've heard, does not fully protect from the beginning of conception, this would really help people. Multiple people that I've worked with have expressed, if this weren't a legal option, I would have persevered and I would have found a way. And that's what we do here in Wyoming. I also want to point out that at 6 weeks, although everyone keeps saying it's very early, we even have the science to, anyone can order a blood test online called the Sneak Peek Gender Preview Test. You poke your finger just like you would if you're taking your blood sugar, send in that result, and at 6 weeks with 99% accuracy, this lab can tell you whether or not you have a boy or a girl growing in your womb. So although it is very early, we have the science to support this. This is a life, it's a human, it's not the potential of one. It's not going to maybe become a giraffe. It's going to become a human. And we can tell if it's going to have which chromosomes it's already going to have. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? All right. Thank you very much. You brought me back to when I have 4 kids and we never found out beforehand what we were having, and I would refer to them as different things. And I remember one person saying, well, obviously you're not having like a giraffe or an elephant or something like that. So welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Laura Pavey, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of HB 126. With the repeal of Roe versus Wade, the authority to regulate abortions was returned to the state. It restored the state's legislature's responsibility to define policy within their own constitutional framework in Wyoming. That responsibility rests here. Under current Wyoming law, termination of a pregnancy can occur up until the time of delivery. Whether one agrees with that standard or not, that is the present reality. HB 126 asks this body to consider whether a framework reflects our constitutional duty. The boundary must be established. Our Wyoming Constitution declares that in Article 1, Section 2, that all members of the human race are equal. Article 1, Section 6 provides no person shall be deprived of life without due process. The government exists to secure and protect these rights, beginning of life itself. The question before you now is, where does that protection begin? Human life begins at conception. At the moment, a distinct living human organism exists with unique DNA and continuous growth path developments. Growing change, size, and ability. It does not change its identity. A detectable human heart is not symbolic. It's a measure of medical evidence that it is a human life conceived, alive, and actively developing. A heartbeat does not create life, it confirms it. I took a tour of a center and it showed me that they could detect a heartbeat at this stage without being transvaginal. In every other every other field of medicine, cardiac activity determines life. Dependency does not erase humanity. Size does not determine worth. Location does not change its identity. The role of the law is to protect the vulnerable. There is no one more vulnerable than the children that are in the womb. We have a constitutional responsibility right now to define it in statute. If the government exists to secure life, then the human heartbeat is beating. Then the law should not be silent in this. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Jonathan Lang. I'm from Evanston. I didn't intend to testify today, but I was compelled. Life is a dance. It's always a dance between one person, between 2 people or 3 or 4, but it involves movement in time. And a lot of your work as legislators is to lay out the steps, how we do that, and the boundaries. I think religion is also a part of laying out the steps of how we interact with one another. But religion is not a part of whether or not we're in a dance. Wherever there are two people, they're dancing. Religion tells them how, but the fact is before our eyes. I was compelled, I mentioned, because about an hour ago, I got a text from home. Our family is grieving at their premature birth and death of my niece's baby. And we have been dancing with him. His name is Josiah. We've been dancing with him since November, when we first found out that he had medical issues, and praying for him, taking care of him. People can do that in different ways, but I just wanted to say that today it came clear to me that this is not a theory, that he is the same as each and every one of us in this room was at his age. And let's dance in a just way.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Okay. Anybody else in the room that would like, yes. Senator Hutchings.
Mr. Lang, I just want to give our panel's commiseration on the loss of your child. Thank you. Niece's child. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hutchings. Anybody else who wants to testify? I mean, I see we have one more, but if there's other people who want to testify for this bill, go ahead and continue filling the chairs. Welcome.
Do I just state my name?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Yes,
Aaron.
your name and then give us your testimony.
Aaron Savar. And I would just like to say, as an engineer, I look at a lot of data, and I think in the context of this, maybe you could just think in terms of data. But I'm kind of unique because I have 11 children. Me and my wife have 11 children, and so I have a unique perspective. I have the perspective where I've over the last many years, I've seen ultrasound after ultrasound, and I've seen early ultrasounds. One time my wife had to go have an ultrasound at about 6.5 weeks. From that point on, and then the normal ultrasounds, you can't believe how many ultrasounds I've seen. And as an engineer, I typically view the world and I view my workplace in terms of data and facts. But as a human being, I've had a unique opportunity to see the ultrasound after ultrasound, and I've seen those tiny little arms and hands and fingers and that fluttering heartbeat and that movement, and it's just amazing to me. And so let's not get lost in the data. Let's not get lost in the facts that sometimes overwhelm us. And we live in such an information age that there's just too much now at this point. As an engineer, there's too much data for me to even process. But as a human being, let's not forget that human beings, and let's try to visualize, if I can just a little bit describe, well, I don't have time, but I can tell you, when you see an ultrasound, all you need to see is one. That's what modern science has really blessed us with, is that view into the womb, hasn't it? And when you see those hands and those arms and those legs kicking, even at 8 weeks, I think we had an ultrasound at 8 weeks, even at 6.5 weeks, I could see that little fluttering heart. So I don't know if my time is up, but
It is. Thank you.
any questions?
Committee, any questions? Okay. Thank you. If you go ahead and state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Tony Geezer, Madam Chair, Senators. I come before you in support of HB 126. I believe that all life starts at the moment of conception and that it all comes from God. If this clump of cells, fetus, organism, or whatever people choose to call it, were to be born as a worm or a lamb or something other than a human being, we wouldn't be having this conversation. As others have stated, if these cells were found on the moon, Mars, or any other galaxy, the scientific community would be overjoyed at this discovery. Not so if it's found in the womb. Since it is going to become a human being, there really is no difference when it is killed, in or out of the womb. 5 minutes after it's born or 70 years old. It's still human life. Actions have consequences, and those consequences can result in life. If the mother or father chooses, they can give it for adoption. There's many people, I think, out there who are willing to adopt. In cases of rape or incest, I believe the same is true. Please vote yes on HB 126.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee, any questions? Okay. Anybody else in the room who would like to testify for this bill? Anybody else? Okay. Do we have anybody online to testify for this bill? Okay, if you would let them in, please. Welcome. If you would give us your name for the record and your testimony.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Well, thank you, committee. My name is Ross Schriftman. I am president of the Natrona County chapter of Wyoming Right to Life, and we are very much in support of House Bill 126. When we hear that a family member or friend is pregnant, usually the first question we ask is whether the baby is a boy or a girl. Then we might ask, how is the mother doing? Yes, the mother, because she already is one before the birth of her child. It would be bizarre if we asked if the baby is alive. We already know the answer. Ironically, the procedures used to commit abortions include starvation, sucking a baby out of her mother's womb through a tube, or tearing the baby apart. If a human baby is not alive, why are the procedures used designed to kill him or her? One of the chemicals used to kill a baby is digoxin. It is a drug, when used in sufficient dosage, is designed to stop a beating heart. If it's not a beating heart, why use this drug? We are very much in favor of this bill, as I said, and we urge that this committee do approve the bill. And one final word, I'd like to thank all the members of the legislature who have worked so hard during this budget session, regardless of their positions on any of these bills. We are grateful for all your work, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Okay. Thank you. All right, and that's it for online? Okay. Meeting room? All right, with that, we are going to close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Been moved by Senator Steinmetz, seconded by Senator Hutchings. Any amendments on the bill?
Madam Chairman.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe that our good staff, thank you so much for having those amendments ready. I had a stack of them as well, so thank you for that. I have two amendments. I'd like to take the second one first.
Okay.
So it would be 302 for everyone. And what this does is it tightens up the language in the findings to make it more consistent with the last court decision and the protection of the general welfare clause. And so I hope you've all had a chance to read it. And that is what I would like to move. One of the main changes is in section 5, where it says medical evidence shows that a fetal heartbeat is a key indicator that an unborn child is alive and will reach live birth. The state has a compelling interest, beginning at least at the time of a fetal heartbeat is detected, in protecting the life of the unborn child.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Any discussion? I'll just so that we can, because this I think was brought up with this amendment, then we are taking out the part where we talk about fetal pain, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Senator Steinmetz.
we are taking out the torture and inhumane treatment and inserting protecting life.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Senator Steinmetz's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, that amendment passes.
All right, and then the second amendment is labeled 301 for the committee. And for the citizens, I would move this amendment for our consideration, and for the citizens listening, this would simply allow a trigger if this law would be enjoined by the courts or struck down. This trigger would be effective. It would go to the Attorney General for review of any decisions on the court challenges. And if the Attorney General, within 30 days of the date of the decision, report or fact, he would report to the governor and the Joint Judiciary Committee to certify the effectiveness of this article in the Secretary of State. And what he would certify is the other law could not be enforced, and we would go back to the 2022 laws of viability, which were in place before the Life is a Human Right Act repealed all of it, and it would give us a floor rather than having no laws on the books.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Committee, any discussion on this amendment? Any discussion? No? Okay. Thank you, Senator Steinmetz, for bringing these amendments. I think that this is an important amendment, as this just would say that should this go to court, that we would revert to what was on the books prior to legislation that was passed in 2022. So, okay, all those in favor of Senator Steinmetz's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, that amendment passes. Any other amendments, committee? Okay, discussion on the bill. Senator Scott.
Madam Chairman, you've heard my standard talk before. I do think this is one religion imposing its views on the rest of us. And I do think that's inappropriate and in all probability violates the First Amendment. So that's all I'll say down to you. You've heard it enough before.
Thank you, Senator Scott. We have heard it, but we'll hear it as many times as you'd like to say it.
You'll hear it again.
So-
on the floor.
Sounds good. I do have just a few, I think, comments on this bill. I appreciate the testimony. We heard a lot of testimony in support of this bill, and we heard a lot of testimony opposed to this bill. I definitely appreciate what the House did in saying that there has to be an actual conviction for those medical people involved, for the nurses, the physicians, and the doctors, that this can't just happen, but they actually have to be convicted of violating this act. But I appreciate that there's thoughtful things in this bill, that we are actually looking at the science of when that heartbeat begins, that it needs to be detectable, and those are things that are easily done by the medical community. And so with that, we can go take roll call unless there's any other. Okay, we can go ahead and take roll.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 126 as amended. Senator Crum,
Excused?
Senator Hutchings,
Aye.
Senator Scott,
No.
Senator Steinmetz,
Aye.
Chairman Brennan.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, that is 3 aye, 1 no, and 1 excused.
Okay, thank you. Committee, with that, we will be adjourned for the day. We will be back on Monday to hear, I think, our last bill for the session.
All right.